and welcome, Toby. What I loved about this book is, again, the humour and the wonderfully drawn characters. There are many incidents that anyone growing up in suburbia in the 80s could relate to, but Toby manages to capture the quirkiness and his family dynamic in a way that keeps the characters alive and in your mind long after you finish the book. And that's part of the reason why I loved it. It's got fantastic humour. So Toby's here with us now, and maybe Toby, you can tell us a little bit about your book and what you would like readers to take away from you. I'm just going to mute myself because I've got helicopters moving around. I don't know if you can hear that.
Sure. Can you all hear me? I was having trouble with sound before.
Yes, all fine, Toby.
Thank you, and thanks, Sonia. So as you said, this is a book about my teenage years, growing up with a lesbian mum and her partner in the northern suburbs of Sydney in the 80s. And at that time, that part of Sydney was very religious and conservative, and probably still is, actually. But despite that slightly oppressive climate, my mum and dad reached that bohemian understanding you heard in the pre-record. So, yep, mum was free to kiss other girls and dad was free to get drunk, basically, was the arrangement. Eventually, mum fell in love with one of her girlfriends, Caro, and decided to move in with her. So my siblings and I moved into a new home in Beecroft around the same time that I started high school at an uptight Anglican college on the North Shore. So the book is about me trying to navigate high school and adolescence, when my neighbours were really confused because they'd expected a traditional nuclear family to move in next door, and instead they got a pair of hot lesos, one of whom could deadlift the weight of a small car. And Caro was a gun sportswoman who regularly flogged me in tennis too, so it was a pretty confronting time for me. I was a skinny classical musician. I know that's hard to believe looking at the strapping man you see before you now, but yes, I was a target for mockery already, and my unusual family made life that bit trickier when I was trying desperately to fit in, as all teenagers do. So I guess in terms of what I would hope readers take away with them, I guess first of all, I'd want them to have a laugh at my expense, and then I'd hope they take away the deeper message that love can overcome prejudice, that over time, bravery and decency wins admirers and supporters in unlikely places. And my mum was really brave, breathtakingly so when I think back on it now, living so openly with her partner in Beecroft at that time. And my childhood showed me that people can surprise you by being more accepting and generous than you might give them credit for. Our neighbours who were very religious, as I mentioned, and my rugby playing high school friends who were very macho boys in the 80s, they all came to love my mum and her partner and be super supportive of them. I think it's hard to maintain prejudice when you really know someone from repeated exposure, especially if that someone is kind, like my mother. So I guess I thought that was an important message at a time when there seems to be so much intolerance in the world. It's important to remember that communities can change and become more tolerant over time. Beecroft certainly did. And incidentally, that area voted in favour of gay marriage in 2017, which would have been unthinkable, when I was growing up. So these were some of the key messages I was hoping to convey.